Page 47 is where we begin. And before we jump into page 47, a couple of non-math announcements. First of all, there are some great free workshops open to GCC students during the January session. They are free to you guys. They're about job searching and job placement. So here are some dates. In the second week of January, there's a 3-hour workshop on writing a resume that shines, another 3-hour workshop on writing a cover letter that glows, and then finally interviewing to win. And then 2 weeks later, the same 3 workshops are offered in a different order. Now, they're free. You can sign up anytime, but there is a suspicion that they might fill up. So if you're interested, you might want to sign up kind of soon. Here's what I am going to do right now. I have a copy of this PDF right here, so you can take a look and just make sure you know which one is which. And if you have any interest, you can put your name on the sign-up sheet and circle 1 or more dates that you're going to come in on. So you can do this anytime, but if you want to sign up on my sheet, you got to do it today because I'm going to send this over to the official guy tomorrow, okay? So outside of that, if you decide next week, oh, hey, Ian, can you give me the link? I'll just give you this piece of paper, and then you can contact that person and register yourself directly, all right? Any questions on that? Okay, so we'll just pass them around. Next thing, so here's our calendar. I do have projects to give back, and I'll give them back in just a minute or two, but I do want to mention something about revisions. I want to be clear about about how exactly this works. I handed some projects back a week ago today, and for whoever I handed those projects back to, today is the day revisions are due if you wanted to do a revision. But a lot of you are about to get a project back, so to be clear, if I make a small suggestion here or there, you don't need to redo the entire project. You don't even need to reprint the entire project. In fact, if you feel like writing in by hand, if that's the easiest way to fix whatever it is that I'm saying is an error, then you can just write it by hand, okay? So you don't need to do everything all over to fix these small mistakes. I also need you to turn in the original project with my comments. So if you're going to do a revision, you hand it to me by 1 week from today. If I give you this thing back right now, give it to me within 1 week of today, and also hand me back the original copy, which I'm about to give you with my comments. All right, any questions on any of that? And again, you could get a 50 on the first round of the project and 100 on the revision. There's no, like, it's not average, it's nothing like that. So you could get 100 if you address all of the concerns. All right, and then one other announcement, and I'm going to stare at the back wall as I make this announcement so nobody thinks I'm talking to them. Tomorrow is the very last day to withdraw from any class at GCC. So if you're considering withdrawing from this class or another, time is of the essence. Tomorrow is the last day. There's a form you fill out. You get your advisor to sign it, you sign it, and you bring it down to the registrar's office. Are there any questions on that? Okay. So I've somehow offended people by like looking at them when I talk about the last day to withdraw. Hey, why is Ian looking at me? Is he saying I should withdraw from class? All right, so that is that. So this is kind of a funny time in the semester in that we haven't seen each other for a week. We had Tuesday was advising day. Raise your hand if you came in on Tuesday. All right, about 5 of us, okay. And even if you didn't come in Tuesday, the registration window is open, and at the moment, only current GCC students are allowed to register. That goes through the 19th, but after that, the floodgates open, and anybody who is starting here at GCC in the spring is going to be allowed to register. So even if you haven't registered yet, see if you can make an appointment, register soon. Some folks have holds on their account for either health records reasons or financial reasons. If you have one of those holds, you won't be able to register. I can tell you if you have a hold, your advisor can tell you if you have a hold. You probably have gotten an email if you have a hold. But anyway, see what you can do to try to get rid of that hold and then register while you currently have your pick of all the classes. So apologies for the little bit of discontinuity between, it's tough on a Tuesday, Thursday class. You miss one day and it's a full week between seeing each other. So to remind you, last class we talked about chances and odds. And we looked at probability, and then we looked at another number that was really related to probability, but wasn't exactly the same. It was called odds. And then we played craps a few times. So today is our review day for test number 2. Test number 2 covers everything that's highlighted here, all the stuff since test number 1. It does not cover the voting stuff that we did. You're not going to see anything on the monotonicity criterion or the majority criterion or plurality with elimination. Those are behind us. It will cover all of the topics in here. And today we're just going to look really, really briefly or real quickly at these topics. And then most of this period, you guys are going to just practice maybe on the sample test problems that are in the packet. Any questions on the calendar? Okay, and then one other thing while the calendar is here, I know that I'm about to hand project number 1 back. We'll do that here. But recognize that the plan for project number 2, remember there are 2 projects you guys are going to do this semester. The plan for project number 2 is due on November the 20th. So pretty much, right after this class, your job is to really think about that test and study, study, study. There's no other homework. There's no reading assignment. There's no questions of the day. But as soon as you hand that test in to me on Tuesday, your job is to pretty much right away start thinking about project number 2. Now, if you go into the packet, we're starting here at the very end, but if you go 1 or 2 pages before, you will find on page 45 at the bottom a suggested list of topics for project number 2. Everybody that has turned into project number 1 did their project on voting, some aspect of voting. I don't want you to go back and then pick another project from that first list and do something on voting. So these projects are not about voting, they're about different topics. So you can pick any of these things, you can design and carry out a statistical survey, evaluate a clinical study, you can do a research paper about Jesse the Body Ventura. He was a professional wrestler turned politician, an interesting story, and in particular the election had some interesting results when he ended up being elected. So several different options here. The last 2 are about the golden ratio. We haven't talked about that yet, but we will soon enough. So anyway, you can, it'll make more sense as we cover the first few classes right after the test. The other project option that you have at your disposal, there was one project in that first list from the first packet that wasn't about voting. It was called putting numbers in perspective. So if you go back to that very first packet and you look at the long list of projects, the first one is you can add to this list. If you don't like any of these, you can go back and do that very first one, which was about putting large and small numbers in perspective. But other than that, none of the other first projects are okay. Yes, yes?
If we do a research paper,
research papers are roughly 5 pages. I think it's buried in the directions there. Yes?
I did a little election thing the last project. Is doing the survey similar to that? Would you like
you can do any of these 7.
okay, so
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, none of these are about the same kind of voting as the first one was. So all of these are in play, and so is the first project from the first list. All right, so again, if I'm handing you a project right now, you can do a revision if you are so interested. I'm sorry, that's not you. If you are so interested, and it will be due 1 week from today. All right, did everybody who did the project get it back? I think I've handed back everything that I've got. Oh no, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's jump again to page 47. And a few of you actually noticed that on the whiteboard here I wrote some information at the end of the fall semester. There is an official faculty evaluation that students do for each of their teachers who are full-time here at GCC. And so there's going to be, and I'm not allowed to be in the room when you guys do this. It's all official. It goes into my official record and everything. So there'll be another teacher who comes in the last 10 minutes of our class and just proctors this thing while you answer. It's a little bubble sheet that you'll fill in. So there's information here. She'll explain where that's supposed to go. The other thing I'm going to say, so there's 2 parts to the evaluation. There's the bubble sheet, which is mandatory. Everybody does the bubble sheet, and it's easy enough to fill in the bubbles, strongly agree, disagree, all that stuff. Optional is the comment sheet. And so there's a comment sheet that I'm going to have the proctor come around and pass around to you guys. And I'm really hoping that people spend a few minutes giving me some comments. I think that feedback is really where change happens. And I hope that I've given you guys a steady stream of feedback with the homework and the questions of the day and the reading and when the flags go up and the tests and the projects and all that stuff. And you guys have given me some feedback, and I'm hoping for some more. And so I know sometimes it's a pain to write and answer questions sort of free form. You don't need to worry about punctuation or grammar or spelling or anything. Just get some ideas on the paper and give me some feedback. You should know very clearly that I'm not going to have an opportunity to read the feedback you give me or to look at the results from the bubble sheet until sometime in the spring. It's February or something like that. So the reason I tell you that is I don't want you to try to butter me up on the feedback form in the hopes that your grade will go up this semester. It won't. I'm not going to see this in time to do anything with your grade. You should also feel free to be honest. And if you have some constructive criticism to offer, you should write it honestly and not worry that your grade is going to suffer because I'm going to try to take it out on you. Again, I'm not going to see these until well after grades are submitted. Okay? It's optional, but I'm really hoping that you guys will do this for me. All right, so that will happen in the last 10 minutes of class. So today we're here on the top of page 47. It says we're going to go and figure out the probability of winning at craps. I don't want to do that. I want to just give you guys as much time as possible to do the practice problems, but I will write the final answer here. It turns out that the probability of winning a game of craps is about 49.3%. So I don't know if we remember all the rules. You'd roll 2 dice. If you get a 7 on the first roll, what happens? You win. If you get an 11 on the first roll, you win. What were the automatic losers on the first roll? It was 2 and 3 and 12. So those were some of the automatic winners and the automatic losers. But any number that wasn't in that automatic list, it becomes something called the point. If I roll an 8, then 8 is the point. And then I keep rolling until either I get another 8, which is good, I win, or I get a 7, which is bad, I lose. And you guys did a bunch of trials with this, and maybe at some point when we have a little more time, we can look and see if you guys won about 49% of the time. In the long term, that's what we should approach. And in terms of gambling, I'm not condoning this, but if you feel like you need to go to Atlantic City and this is supposed to be a money-making venture, if you are doing this as an investment, here's what you do. You take every penny that you are intending to gamble, you wager it on one roll of the dice on craps. That is the best bet, and then you get out of Dodge as soon as possible, okay? The longer you play, the longer the odds are that you're going to tend to whatever the magic probability is. And the probability in blackjack is less than this, and the probability in roulette is less than this, and the probability in every other game is less than this. So the fact that's under 50% means the odds are not in your favor. But that is as close to 50% as you could ever hope to find in any casino. So again, I don't think it's a good wager, but if you intend to go to Atlantic City trying to make some money, you play one round, you put every dime you're wagering on one round of craps, and you hope that you win, okay? If you lose, then you're out all the money. Don't blame me. I'm telling you not to do it. Just saying, if you're going to do it, here's how you should do it. Okay, so a very quick rundown of the topics that are covered on this particular test. Some of these things are going to feel like they happened so long ago, and they kind of did, but they all happened after the first test. So the first topic here you see is weighted voting. We had something that looked like 6, 4, 2, 2, 1. What's the 6 called? That's the quota. That's how many votes are required to pass the thing. How many players are in this weighted voting system? There are 4 players. The 4, the 2, and the 1. That's 4 numbers. There are 4 people that are voting. They have different numbers of votes. The strongest person has 4 votes to their name. Second and third strongest people both have 2. And the weakest person there has 1. And then what did we do with that? Well, we did a whole lot of calculations, and you guys will practice today. We're not going to do it now, but you'll practice today in your groups. There were 2 different ways that we estimated power. We had the Bonzoff power index and the Shapley-Shubik power index. And the final result of those 2 things, after a lot of work, would be something like, okay, this guy has 50% of the power, and these 2 people have each 20% of the power. And this last person has 10% of the power. Those are not the right numbers, I'm just making them up. But this was the final answer. This was the goal of all the big, long calculations that we would do for the 2 different power indices, okay? So hopefully you'll be able to refresh your memory. Somebody at each table maybe can refresh your memories, and I'll walk around and answer questions. But also you should know some of these vocabulary words. What's a dictator? What does it mean when someone has veto power? How do you identify dummies? And on the test, I'll be very clear. You're gonna be given a weighted voting system like this one, 6, 4, 2, 2, 1, and I'll say, who are the dictators, if any? Who has veto power, if anybody? Who are the dummies, if there are any? Okay, and then we talked about statistics, and we analyzed some studies, and we analyzed clinical studies, and there was a whole heck of a lot of terminology. We're not going to read through the list, but essentially those were the important vocabulary words that we had. Also in there was the capture-recapture method. And so what's going to happen on the test, and again, I'm going to be very frank with you about exactly what you can expect on the test. You're going to see a study, like one of the studies that you guys read was about writing in a diary and whether writing in a diary actually makes you sicker. And so I'll give you like a little paragraph or two story, and it's some study that's happened, and then I will ask you who was the sample, who was the population, name some sources of bias, basically the same kinds of questions that I gave you when you guys did the, that activity in class that day. And then separate from that, you'll look at a clinical study, and I'll say, you know, there were 20 people and 10 of them took this drug and the other 10 didn't take the drug, and here's what happened in terms of their cholesterol. And then you're going to answer, oh, was that a blind study? Was it a double-blind study? Was it randomized? Was it a controlled study? Who is the control group? Who is the treatment group? Okay, it's okay if you don't have all these vocabulary words just, you know, like that. It's been a week since maybe you even thought about any of this stuff, but you are going to have, again, a piece of paper of your own creation. So write down the definitions of all these words that you don't know, and then be prepared to analyze, okay? And then we had counting and probability. There were 3 different ways we had to count stuff. We had the multiplication rule, we had permutations, we had combinations. And we had a nice little flow chart. And if you find the flow chart helpful, super. You're going to bring it with you to the test. We had sample space was just a definition. We used our counting to talk about probabilities. And sometimes if the events are independent, we use that multiplication principle. And then lastly was the odds. It's all vocabulary. You'll review all of it today in your groups. Just to be clear about the resources you will have, you're going to bring a calculator with you. I can lend some out if you don't have one with you on that day. A 1-page sheet of notes of your own creation. I cannot stress enough how important that is to some folks. Oftentimes I can do a pretty good job of predicting the grade you're going to get by only looking at how well prepared your 1-page sheet of paper is as I walk around while you take the test. What I have seen is that people that spend the time to make a really, really strong 1-page sheet of notes oftentimes have a really strong performance on the test. And then there are other people who come in with this 1-page sheet of notes, and it, you know, the ink is still wet because they spent 30 seconds right before class writing out a few formulas, and then they come up to me in class, oh, Ian, I meant to put this other thing on the page, but I just forgot. Okay, don't forget. You have 5 days between now and the test. Spend some of that time making a solid, comprehensive 1-page sheet of notes. There are 2 handouts that you're going to find at the beginning of this packet. The 2 power indices are on the first page. You can go back and look at it right now. You're going to rip that off and bring it with you to the test. And then the second page was the thing with the counting flow chart. All right, Patty. Yes. You can bring it in. It's okay if you have writing on the handouts. The first 2 pieces of paper. So it goes pages 1 and 2, 3 and 4. You're going to rip off 2 pages when you come to the test. Did I get my pages wrong? Okay, what is page 1? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, page 1 was just something that I included in case you needed extra ones of these for your homework. Yeah, so the pages you guys are going to have are pages 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, so the first page was just for practice in case you needed it when you did the homework. Thank you. Okay, you have 1.5 hours for the test. It's written to be 1 hour long. Hopefully 1.5 is plenty of time so that we don't feel rushed. Our class officially starts every day at 9:30. There's another class in here that ends at 9:15. I'm going to be ready to go at like 9:18. If you can get here 10 minutes early, and as soon as those guys leave that class, we can start you, right? As soon as they're ready. And then there's another class comes in at 11, so maybe we can push it to like 10:55 or something like that. Anyway, come a little bit early so that you're not stressed about getting here on time, and maybe you have a few extra minutes to take this test. Are there any questions about any of the kind of general information that we've just given about that test? Okay, and then to be clear, there is no homework due next class. Your job is to study for the test between now and Tuesday. That is all the math stuff you're going to be doing. There's no reading assignment, no questions of the day, none of that. That said, as soon as you hand that test to me completed on Tuesday, you start thinking about your second project, and you also think about revisions you might want to make to the first if I handed that back to you just now, okay? If I gave it to you today, it is due 1 week from today. So between now and Tuesday, you're studying, but then after that, thinking about project 2 and possibly revisions for project 1. Yes, it's not, did I get the date wrong? Where is it? Oh, where are you looking right now, Patty? Yes. I'm trying to figure out what you guys are looking at that's different from me.
It's not on that, but it's up right there. So do you want us to bring that in right after as one of our pieces of paper?
That is strange. So you have that too. Does everybody have this extra thing? How do I have something projected that's different from what you guys have printed? One paragraph plan. Okay. So here's the real date. I'm confused as to how I have something different because I just project what I print and give to you. So I'm a little confused about how it looks different for some of you. But for example, Nicole's looks exactly the same as the one that's up here. So I don't quite know what's going on. But the plan for project 2. So let's look at the calendar. Our test is coming up on Tuesday. On Thursday, we talk about Fibonacci numbers in nature. Next Tuesday, so not this coming Tuesday, but the one after, that's when the plan is due, okay? So you can cross that off. The plan is not due the class after the test, but it's due 2 classes after the test. I want the paragraph, but I don't want it the day after the class test. I want it 2 classes out. I want it on November 20. That's when it's due, November the 20th. Yeah. Okay, so here's the plan. We go until what time? 45? All right, so we have 52 minutes. Here is what we're going to do in those 52 minutes. If you go back a few pages, you're going to find some sample test problems starting on page 41. Page 41. There is an answer key. I want to be clear and let you know again that I made videos of me going through these things. You might want to write down this phrase. I'll show you exactly how to find the videos in question. So if you type in 117 sample test 2, problem 4. Everybody see it? 117 sample test 2, problem 4. It's kind of hard to compete with this movie that's happening down here at the bottom. Oh, all right. So if you type in sample 117 sample test 2, problem 4, no spaces, and you hit enter, it will pull up 117 sample test number 2. There's a whole collection of videos here. There's the one that you want that's on problem 4. There's the link to the whole playlist. There's 7 different problems in this sample test packet. So all of them have videos, all right? So you're not going to have enough time to do all 7 problems here in class, but between now and then, take a look at the YouTube videos for any questions you might have, all right? Okay, so I'm going to walk around and answer questions. Don't feel like you have to start at number 1 and go in order. You can jump around. If there's particular topics that you guys really wanted to review, start with those.